time. Penn Township Board of Supervisors this Wednesday, December the 9th, 2014. We'll bring this meeting to order. We are here for the purpose of a hearing, public hearing for input in regards to a request by David Ziats on the zoning change. That being said, at this point, I will turn it over to Solicitor Wagner to ask all the necessary questions that are needed to put this meeting in complete order.
Thank you. I showed up a day early. It's Tuesday, December 9th, I believe, not Wednesday.
Excuse me.
The purpose of tonight's public hearing, folks, is for the supervisors to have input from any interested party concerning a proposed map change that Mr. David Ziats has indicated to the township he wishes to pursue. Several different ways that this could have been handled, but the township decided to conduct a public hearing to have input prior to deciding whether or not they would even propose an ordinance for advertising. So there is no ordinance presently pending upon which the supervisors need to act. The purpose of tonight's meeting and hearing is to get input from all interested parties to give guidance to the township supervisors to determine whether or not they will consider a proposed map change on the property in question. Having said that, please note that there's court reporters here for purposes of taking down your testimony. The importance of that is for the township supervisors to be able to rely on that testimony if they so desire at some later point in time. There is no time frame within which they have to act, so it's not something that they'll necessarily do at the next township meeting, but we do have a stenographic record being made to provide that input. We anticipate this evening that we'll have a presentation from Mr. Ziats, or on behalf of Mr. Ziats. We would anticipate we may have some people speaking in favor of or in opposition to the proposal. In order to entertain your comments, it will be necessary for you to speak clearly. Please stand if you want to make a comment, identify yourself, give us your address, and keep in mind these young ladies who are our court reporters are some of the best of the business, but they cannot take down two people talking at the same time. So if you feel compelled to say something, please do it in the appropriate fashion. I would also respectfully ask that if you've heard the first 8 people in front of you say that you're opposed to this because of traffic problems, you don't need to be the 9th person to stand up and tell us about the same traffic problems. So if someone has made a point that is the same point you anticipate making, you can briefly support that, but you don't have to elaborate. This is a rather informal procedure. We are not going to be swearing witnesses. We will be entering some exhibits into the record, however, and we will be hearing some presentations on behalf of various persons. Having said that, does anybody have any questions about the procedure that we're going to follow? Seeing none, we're going to enter as an exhibit for consideration at the appropriate time, and we'll mark it as Township Exhibit 1, which is an affidavit of publication. I'll just put the numbers on the bottom. Exhibit number 2 is a letter dated the 16th of October from Madden Engineering. Madden Engineering is the Penn Township zoning officer. That will be marked as number 2, and anybody's free to look at these at the appropriate time. Exhibit number 3 will be a letter from the Penn Township Planning Commission dated the 22nd of October 2014. And exhibit number 4 will be a letter dated November 19, 2014 from the Perry County Planning Commission. These will be made part of the record this evening, but if anyone wants to look at them, they may do so prior to the conclusion of this meeting. We respectfully ask that you remain orderly in your comments. We also ask that you identify yourself for purposes of the record. Finally, I will ahead of time apologize. I have a presentation I'm making to 20 small gains of chance license holders at 7:30 this evening, so I might be sneaking out the side door. That should not curb you in making comments for consideration by this board. Having said that, I think it probably would be prudent, rather than speculating, if we could put Mr. Hubert Gilroy, counsel for Mr. Ziats, under the gun, just to give us a presentation on what is anticipated with his zoning map change, and from there, appropriate comments will be received.
Good evening, Hubert Gilroy on behalf of the applicant David Ziats. I'm an attorney in Carlisle with Martson Law Offices at 10 East High Street in the borough of Carlisle. I'm here with Rob Schaefer, who is Mr. Ziats' engineer, and Mr. Ziats is also here for a comment or any testimony that is required. My plan is to proceed with the engineer as far as comments or testimony. I have a number of exhibits which I'll pass out to the supervisors. I'll question him and offer him for any questions by the supervisors. I know counsel is here for one of the neighbors, and certainly he's experienced and can follow up with any cross-examination that he may require. If that's satisfactory, I'd propose to put Mr. Schaefer here and question him here, if that's okay with the board.
Makes sense.
First, I would note that an application was filed. We'd ask that that application, which was filed with the township, be marked as applicant's exhibit number 1. And we would note preliminarily that this matter went before the Township Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission recommended favorable action by the Board of Supervisors on the request of Mr. Ziats. Mr. Schaefer, please state your full name and business address.
Robert E. Schaefer with Act One and Associates at 200 South 41st Street in Harrisburg. I'm the engineer for the applicant as well as a resident of Penn Township.
And you are a licensed engineer in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner, would you like me to give you the original exhibits and then copies to the board? Would that be satisfactory?
Why don't you give the originals to this young lady, and she'll make them part of the record.
Okay.
Go from there, but thank you.
Mr. Schaefer, I'm showing you what we marked as applicant's exhibit number 2. I have a number of these. Would you please identify that?
It's the site plan I prepared depicting Mr. Ziats' property in the portion that we would desire to be rezoned from R1 to commercial.
Okay, so the applicant in this case is David P. Ziats, and he's the owner of the parcel in question, as noted, partially in thatched and partially not thatched. Is that correct?
Correct.
And he purchased that property just recently in September of 2014?
Yes.
He owns it himself, right? Okay, please describe the property as far as size and its current use.
What is the size? I don't know off the top of my head.
Do you have your application handy? Maybe you can refer to that.
It's about 17.5 acres, of which Mr. Ziats and I decided half of it is currently wooded. So we decided to be in the best interest to leave that as it is, zoned R1, and concentrate on the front portion along the Route 274 corridor.
So the property is fronting on Route 274, is that right?
Correct.
And the front portion is basically vacant at this point?
It's correct. It's agriculture.
And the rear is wooded?
Correct.
So the front portion, as shown on exhibit applicant's number 2, where it's thatched, that's the area that's proposed to be rezoned, is that right?
Yes.
And the back area, you're proposing no action for that particular portion of the property?
No zoning change with that, correct.
Okay. Would you please describe some of the adjacent parcels, the uses?
Well, it's one of the major corridors here through Perry County. It runs from the eastern boundary to the western. It has commercial. There is commercial property to the east of us. We kind of mimicked that property in the depth of our proposed commercial zone.
Okay, I'm going to show you what I've marked with the steno as applicant's exhibit. Actually, that should be number 3. Did I number 3? Okay. Would you please identify that document?
It's a blow-up of the current Penn Township zoning map. I used that, drew a portion on there that we would like to rezone to commercial to kind of see how it fits with the other commercial properties in the area.
Okay, so the portion of Mr. Ziats' land that is proposed to be rezoned commercial is it's marked in somewhat of a square, and it's labeled as changed to C commercial, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the yellow area, that is the current zoning for the district of R1 low-density residential, correct?
Yes.
And the pink is the commercial zone.
Yes.
All right, please, again, for the record, although the map describes it, please describe the adjacent zonings, the adjacent parcels and how they're zoned.
Like I said, there's the parcel to the east that's entirely zoned commercial. There's the essential services building, the Duncannon Firehouse across Route 274, which is zoned commercial, which in the past was once part of this property. It used to be owned under the same ownership. Late 90s, the firehouse was subdivided off of this piece, Mr. Ziats' piece. Then there is a few lots to the northwest that are zoned commercial as well, up towards Faculty Row, as well as the piece across at the intersection of 274 and Faculty Row.
Okay, so looking at this exhibit, actually the commercial zone is along 274 is interrupted with this property, is that right?
Yes.
And if this, at least a portion of the property as proposed, is rezoned commercial, it would be just a logical extension of the commercial zone along PA Route 74, is that right?
It would continue the continuity.
Okay, now your application referred to some other commercial uses along PA 274. Would you take a look at that and indicate on the record what some of the other commercial uses are in the vicinity?
Well, starting out towards Duncannon, there's the business campus. It has the Mutts Balls Market. There's drugstores. There's medical centers out there. On out towards our property, there is a hardware store. Then you come out to our property in question, and there's the Duncannon Firehouse. There is there at the intersection of Faculty Row and 274. There's a church, which used to be a medical center, as well as a service garage or something on the same parcel. And as you continue on out 274, there are churches, and there's a convalescent home and some other, not necessarily commercial uses, but institutional and then that's pretty much the end of the Penn Township.
Okay.
You get into the next township, and there are some more uses there. But
the rezoning of this parcel as commercial would not create an island of any sort. It would just fit in exactly with the commercial use along 274 in the area. Is that right?
yes.
Okay. I'm showing you what's been marked as applicant's exhibit number 4. Is that a copy of the township's zoning ordinance showing the permitted uses? So is that a copy of the R1 low-density residential district zoning ordinance as it currently exists?
Yes.
All right, so this provision of the ordinance lists the permitted uses and the other types of uses that could go on the property right now, even if it wasn't rezoned. Is that right?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Going down that list and going to number 5, permitted uses and essential service. Is that right?
Yes.
An essential services is defined under the ordinance or in a different provision. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
So essentially, essential service could be a sewage pump station, a township building, any type of municipal function. Is that fair?
Correct. Yes.
All right, so as the property is currently zoned, essential services could go on the property,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Number 6 on the permitted use is a place of worship, so a church could go in on this property, is that right?
Yes.
And all the associated traffic that would come and go with a house of worship, correct?
Yes.
Number 10, a daycare home is a permitted use on this property, is that right?
Yes.
And by right, the owner could put a daycare home in there and with all the associated comings and goings, is that right?
Correct.
Number 11 on the next page of that exhibit, cemeteries are also permitted uses,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
Going down to conditional uses on the bottom of the second page, community activity buildings are uses that could be allowed by the supervisors, is that right?
Yes.
Next page, a public or private school, a college, or educational institution is also a use that would be permitted by right without any, except the conditional use through the supervisors, right?
Yes.
And number 6, again, would allow buildings and structures for municipal use or public utility, right?
Correct. Yes.
7 is any state, county, or federal buildings, is that right?
Yes.
Public libraries would be allowed under number 8.
Yes.
And a country club or golf course could go into this particular parcel, assuming they could fit some holes in there.
Yes.
Right. Now, sir, Mr. Ziats has a proposed use for the property. What is that?
Self-storage units.
Please describe those for the record.
Concrete, typically concrete block buildings, one story, with multiple openings, for people to come and go and store their belongings, as they wish.
Okay. That type of use, does it have a steady traffic all day long, or is it intermittent use for the most part?
It's very intermittent.
Have you had experience with other self-storage units through your office?
Yeah, a little bit of experience with those. Of all commercial uses, they're probably the one with the least amount of traffic flow in and out of.
Okay. Normally no nighttime activity, is that right?
Normally, depending on the time of the year, this time of year, getting dark early, there would be, I guess, nighttime, if you call that.
Okay. If this property was rezoned to commercial, and if Mr. Ziats wanted to put a self-storage units in, he would need to file a land development plan with the township, is that right?
Right.
And
Yes.
for folks in the audience who don't know what a land development plan, would you please explain that?
Well, he would need to comply with the township subdivision land development regulations. Any aspect of the development would have to meet what they require, as well as any zoning aspects of the commercial district.
So essentially, you as his engineer would have to prepare a plan showing where the storage units would be located, is that right?
Right.
And the supervisors at that time could require some type of screening, for example, for neighboring properties?
Yes.
Screening being fencing or vegetative screening, is that right?
Yes.
The supervisors could also put some conditions on with respect to hours of operation and how the storage units are accessed, is that right?
Yes, all that information would most likely be, that would all be addressed in the fine print before any approvals would be granted.
And looking at the ordinance provisions, sir, in the residential zone, this property doesn't have water or sewer, is that right?
Right.
Okay, in the residential zone, the front yard setback is 25 feet, is that right?
Yes.
So any development of all those uses that we outlined that are currently permitted in the residential zone, the setback out front along the road would be 25 feet, right?
Yes, in R1.
If this property was zoned commercial, and I'm showing you the commercial zoning district ordinance for the township, what is the front yard setback for commercial?
50.
So if this property is rezoned commercial, any uses would actually be further back off the road than what's permitted currently under residential zoning.
Correct.
Okay.
As well as in commercial, the minimum side yard setback is 25 feet.
And what is it under residential?
15.
Okay. And during the land development process, especially if neighbors were interested and wanted to work with the property owner, those types of setbacks could be negotiated to actually be farther back, correct?
Yes, those are the minimums. You can
Right.
always-
But the property owner, if he talks with the neighbors or she talks with the neighbors at the land development plan, they could come in with a plan that actually has bigger setbacks and more screening from both the front and the sides, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Based upon your experience, would rezoning this property have any negative impact on any of the adjacent properties?
In my opinion, no.
I have no further questions.
Let me ask you a clarification for the record, please. Mr. Schaefer, you gave us a map, and I'm going to hold up and show it to you so you can see the map I'm referring to. At your convenience, you don't have to do it now, but could you mark what the different colors mean? I know that the pink is commercial and the white is, or the yellow is I think, a low residential density. But if you could have those on the original that we're going to put in the record, I think that would be helpful for us if you could do that. Having requested that, does anybody have any questions of Mr. Schaefer?
I do, yes. Jerry Philpott representing Ms. Kistler, who's seated next to me. Mr. Schaefer, you will agree with me that, first of all, it's now in a residential zone, right?
Now it is zoned R1 residential, correct?
And immediately to the north, except for maybe the first 50 to 100 feet from the road, will continue to be residential.
Hold on. Answer him and then you can do this later. I don't want to.
Yeah,
Let me evaluate you.
Yeah, the parcel directly to the north is zoned R1 residential.
And likewise, what I'll call to the east is going to remain residential, right?
Correct.
And across 274, it looks like the land of Benjamin Smith, something like that, that's also going to be residential, stay residential.
Correct.
So this will be a change from a residential area, which will remain residential on three sides, so to speak.
You're asking me?
Your proposal.
I disagree with that. It's just equally sided by commercial, in my opinion.
Okay. That's all I've got for now.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to ask Mr. Schaefer, the engineer, any questions concerning his presentation? The handsome gentleman in the red shirt.
Thank you. Thank you. My name's Mike Conroy. I live at 201 Factory Road. I would be across the street from the proposed area that you're talking about. I've got some questions. If you're
Maybe you
looking,
can come up here,
sure.
please. Thank you.
You want me to face the audience or you people?
You face us.
Okay. The proposal, you want to put these storage buildings in. How many units do you propose?
I have no idea at this point. We didn't get too far because of this meeting right here, this step here. But
Okay.
Mr. Ziats expressed he's going to start with a couple and see how it goes.
2.
Yeah, 2 or 3 if it does well. Maybe add more if it permits, if there's room.
Is that units or is that buildings?
Structures.
And how many's in the structure?
We never discussed individual units in the structure yet.
Okay. How about the height of the structure? Would be 1 story, 2 story, would have a gabled roof, a hip roof, flat roof?
I can't answer that. That would have to be something Mr. Ziats.
They're only 1 story. They got a gable.
I'm sorry, is that Mr.
Yeah, we
Zients
gotta,
speaking?
this is what we said,
Since he's the applicant,
I understand that.
just maybe if we identify him, whatever, how do you want to handle it, Rich?
Well, if he wants to identify himself and say that, one of the things I don't want to get too far afield of is the basic premise that we're here for the rezoning. If the rezoning is granted, in all honesty, he can do what he wants within a commercial district, not just storage sheds. So we have to understand that, and that's what we're faced here. The issue of the number of buildings or the size of the building or the number of units in each building, that's not for tonight. This is just the issue, will they rezone it, and if so, he can do what he wants to within a commercial district. That would be part of the development plan that's being discussed, if that helps.
Okay, well, my questions were basically about fencing going around the units. You know, how far do you plan on fencing? You plan, that, and lighting, that sort of thing. So I guess that's not appropriate for tonight.
They're excellent questions, Mike, but unfortunately, until
Okay, that's fine.
If the supervisors agree to rezone this, then the next step would be the development plan, where you come in with the units and the lighting and the fencing, and then what you're asking is more than appropriate.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your time.
David Marshall, live at 343 Faculty Road. Without having the benefit of the exhibits, figures, mapping, I generally know what you're talking about, but I'm not quite sure. Mr. Conroy kind of put me in a little more perspective, but if you could detail off of 274, you mentioned Faculty Row, you mentioned the firehouse, the substation. I'm not sure if I'm the only one here who's a little clueless, but I would feel better if I kind of had a better feel where this was located, or proposed, I should say.
This property is directly across from the firehouse.
Okay, thank you.
He has, I don't know, 600 some feet of frontage along 274.
Gotcha.
He currently has a permit for Penn Twp to access this property for current use. You know, it would not apply to a commercial use. You know, he can put an entrance in now if he needs to get in there and do whatever he wants to do on the property, which is permitted.
Okay.
That permit is directly in line with the firehouse driveway. So, Penn Twp likes to keep things organized, so there'd be two driveways facing each other instead of offset, creating a problem.
Understood.
But right now, the field it's an open field.
And you said about half that property would be the proposed change in zoning, the other half is wooded?
Correct.
More or less?
And you can see the tree line driving by.
The front.
Because of the shape of it, one line would be 500 feet back to the tree line, and the other one's, off the top of my head, it's one there, but it's 665 or something.
Gotcha.
But there would be no, all the access, everything would be off of Route 274.
Thank you. And I realize what the solicitor said about, and what Mr. Conroy's questions were regarding units, height, lighting, fencing. I understand that's not appropriate for this hearing, but I do believe there's relevance there because if it's granted commercial use, as you stated, anything could be there as long as it followed land development plans and went through the proper channels. But with all the described uses for this property that are permitted now under the residential zoning, I believe all those concerns are more than valid in terms of especially lighting, how high the lighting would be, how high the fencing might be. So with all due respect, I think that is relevant. Perhaps you don't have those answers here tonight and you have just ideas, and as Rob said, they're not fully developed yet, but it's something definitely for the supervisor to be concerned about because it's an unknown. And a change in zoning in this area, there's enough people living nearby that it could have a negative effect. I'm not saying it will, but it's just something to be in your minds, I would hope, in this consideration. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, my name is Richard Fisher. I live at 23 Faculty Road. And my question regards the storage, the items that would be able to be stored there. Would boats be allowed to be stored there?
I can't answer that.
Okay, is there anyone here that could? Or maybe RVs, recreational vehicles, large
That's
recreational
things I do
vehicles?
see, it's similar, at storage sheds, you do see recreational vehicles and things, people can't fit in their driveways.
Right, they're too big and
Yeah.
ungainly. No one wants them around their own home. So they put them somewhere out of their own way in a storage facility or on the premise of a storage facility. Now, the other thing a question I had was, to the best of my knowledge, the firehouse property across 274, that's zoned, that's commercial zone, correct?
Correct.
And when was that placed there, do you know?
2004, I believe.
Okay, when did Penn Township adopt zoning?
2003.
2003, okay. So that's zone commercial, right?
Correct.
Yet under the residential, the R1 usage, the usage of that is I forget the term that the council used, but it's for public service,
Essential services.
essential services. Why was that zone commercial when it could have gone in under R1?
I can't answer that. That would have to have been under the discussions leading up to the adoption of the zoning ordinance.
Okay, and you say that there could be a barrier to kind of obscure the operation of the business, like a fence or something like that?
Definitely. That's something Mr. Ziats and I had discussed to make peace, with the adjoiners and things of that nature. So,
And would that be similar to the other, well, in fact, it's in Penn Township also. There's a scrap yard down where the old, near the old Duncannon service station down there, and we know how effective that is.
yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Yep, thank you.
My name's Joe Klein, I'm 415 Bloomfield Road. You said you got
I'm
a
sorry,
permit.
sir, I didn't get you.
Joel Klein,
Joe Klein,
415
spell your last name.
KLM,
Okay,
415 New Bloomfield Road.
okay.
You said you got a permit for a driveway, for a right-of-way.
He has a current HOP permit from PennDOT to access the property.
To put a driveway in.
So he can access his property. Otherwise, any.
But what I want to know is, does he have a permit to put a driveway in now?
He
Or
has
does he have to apply for that later?
No, that HOP permit from PennDOT will allow him to put a driveway in.
Because I'm wondering on the site distance from where he's planning to put,
Well,
putting a driveway.
PennDOT will not, trust me, they won't give you a permit if he doesn't have site distance.
Well,
I deal with all the
well,
time, yeah, it's,
The papers I read, and the way they have it marked, and the state has it marked on the highway out there, he's far short of the site distance.
well, he told me he has a permit. He has an HOP permit from PennDOT.
I'd love to know how he did it. People wanted to
It
build
was-
in there when it was residential, the state refused it because of the eyesight.
It
They
was,
could not get the eyesight.
you said it was in the prior owner's name, so he had to get it put in his name. So it was before Mr. Ziats even purchased the property, they had an occupancy permit for that.
I thought that, well, occupancy, but I'm talking about a driveway.
Oh, that's,
Because
that's-
everybody that wanted to buy that,
yeah.
they were gonna buy it, but they refused because they didn't have the eyesight on the curb.
Well,
When you
if-
come out, when you turn left, it did not have the eyesight.
Well, PennDOT would not give you a permit for a driveway if you
When I
did not
talked
meet
to the
site
guy was
distance
there,
permit.
one guy was there when they were surveying, that state worker, the woman was with him so they can get around that, and he said, no, you can't. And then they went and measured it, and to me, what the measuring on the road is far short of what the paper for the eyesight.
Well, maybe there's
What is it-
restrictions.
What is the eyesight for a left turn on
Oh,
a
sir,
45 mile an hour?
he either has one or he doesn't. And if he doesn't have one, any plan that he ultimately brings in can't get approved.
Well, okay.
And your point is very well taken, and most importantly, if you have some evidence at some later point in time, if this is approved and if he comes in with a plan, that would be more than relevant at that point in time.
Okay, I just wanted to know, because when he said he had a
Good point.
permit, I was just wondering, because it was refused before.
Well, I can offer, there is restrictions. If there is no site distance, they might be restricted to, no left turns out, right turn out. And
Okay, well, then there is a
there may be
restriction.
restrictions. I don't know that. I didn't see the permit.
Okay.
If the site distance is not adequate, they'll.
And for all the runoff, where's the retention pond? You won't know where that goes yet?
No.
Until,
On the property somewhere. I can guarantee it, but I don't know where.
okay, but you just can't stay on the property. Okay, that's,
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Anybody else have questions of the engineer?
Yeah, Joe Ether, I live at
I'm
19,
sorry,
Joe Ether, E-T-H-E-R, at 19 Faculty Road. What commercial properties currently exist east of that location?
It's the entire farm there. It's, I believe it's under Klein's or Hosteller in black.
So there's no building or structures in there?
Yeah, it's under the name of Patty and Ernest P. Black, but it's currently vacant, but it's zoned commercial.
There's no commercial,
Yes.
there's no, currently no building.
No, it's that
structure
empty field
to the east, and behind it,
just past Gamber's Corner.
right, and behind it is residential.
Yeah, basically the whole field that you see is all zoned commercial back to the tree line.
But I'm saying right now, there's nothing.
No, there's nothing.
Nothing commercial there.
No.
And to the west,
To the west is the commercial properties I described.
but there's no businesses adjacent to it.
No, there is business there at the intersection of Falcon Grow and 274. What used to be the medical center is now the church, and then that garage. I don't know
That's no longer.
whatever they do there, but that was a commercial use. But,
There are no businesses right now that exist around it, other than you have the firehouse, which is work under R1, you have the church would be under R1, and one former garage that no longer is in business, it's just a garage now in residence.
Correct.
That would be in R1, or would fit under R1. So everything around
the
it,
business would be commercial.
I understand there's zone commercial, but currently everything that exists around it is R1, a church, a house.
No, it's not R1, there are commercial properties surrounding it.
I'm saying what exists on it, which falls under R1. First.
It is what it is. There's commercial zoning and there's residential zoning. It's the uses that are permitted. You're right in saying there are no businesses right next door to it, correct?
That's, but everything around it is R1 type items.
We went down the R1 uses, we didn't go down the commercial uses. Some of those same uses are allowed in the commercial zone as are allowed in the R1 zone.
I'm just saying the consistency wise, it's all R1 around.
Anyone else?
My name is Catherine, C-A-T-H-R-Y-N, Ann Palata, K-A-L-A-T-A. I live at K-A-L-A-T-A. I live at 100 Faculty Road. When you were listing the things that could be used on a residential R1 at a commercial area, none of them were really this type of a business. And I wish that supervisors would take that under consideration when they're perhaps making a change or considering this change. I mean, this is not a church, this is not a school, this is not a university. God forbid we would have one here, that would be wonderful. This is none of those things. This is a business that can be most anything. And I would hope that the supervisors would consider that when they perhaps, consider this change that is being asked for. It's none of those things. I mean, a church is a totally different use. A school would have a different use than this type of a building. And as we're hearing, there's so many ifs connected with this. It's really frightening to neighbors. It's frightening to think that all these ifs could happen. And I think that's why we're all standing back here or sitting back here with questioning what could happen? What could this be used for? Are we going to have lights 24/7? And I realize they're saying this is not an appropriate place, but I think it's appropriate enough that the supervisors have to understand our concerns back here. Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions for the engineer?
Susan Kistler, 117 Faculty Road. I just want to back up here a little bit to what Mr. Klein was talking about with the access. The proposed access road is directly against my property. Not the 117 Faculty, but my lot in the front.
Are these questions for the engineer?
Yeah, I just want to clarify something that Mr. Klein was talking about.
For the record, there's no proposed access road. This is not a land development plan. The proposed access road will come before the supervisors when and if a plan is filed. We don't know where the access road would be. So this engineer can't, I don't want to have him suggesting or guessing. That's going to have to be worked out with the plan. Supervisors may want it moved, PennDOT may want it moved. So I don't mean to interrupt, but I don't think he can answer anything about a proposed access road because we don't have any plan before the supervisor.
Well, my point is this. If you're going to have outside parking for RVs, campers, boats, junk vehicles, and that sort of thing, there are site requirements in the code. It's PA Code 441.8, driveway design requirements. If you're just having a passenger car or a single unit truck coming in and out of there at 45 mile per hour speed zone, which is what it is, you need to be able to see 635 feet to the left and 570 feet to the right. Now, having said that, if you're pulling in, my friend has an F-250 and a fifth wheel. It's 40 plus feet long. Another friend has an RV that's 38 feet long. They can be up to at least 70 feet long. This goes into Table 2, safe sight distance for buses and combinations exiting from driveways onto two-lane roads. At this point, at 45 mile per hour, the distance to the left and the right increases to 1,225 feet. I don't think you have it. I don't think you have it.
Any other
This
questions?
witness, I don't think that was a question, so
Any other questions of the engineer? If not,
I believe
thank you.
Exhibit A3 was changed by him as you requested.
Yes, thank you.
So we noted the colors and what they are.
Do you have any other information you want to impart to the board at this juncture, Mr. Gilroy?
No, except to summarize what's been kind of emphasized here. Items such as a permit for access, screening, height of the building. If this property was rezoned, the applicant would come before the supervisors, and he's sitting right here, so he's going to hear what I'm saying, and that is, he told me if it's approved, he's going to work with the neighbors. He doesn't want neighbors upset with him. He doesn't want light shining on them all night long, so that'll be part of the land development process. I would note that any of the uses that are permitted currently in the R1, we wouldn't be here on a meeting like this. They could go in with traffic going in and out, church traffic going in and out in the evening, during the day, lights. So all of the concerns that have been articulated by the neighbors may be addressed during land development, number one, but could also go there under the existing zone. So consistent with what the properties are zoned around it, we're suggesting it's a fair rezoning request for the applicant to make, and we appreciate your consideration. So we'll step back and let anybody else go.
Does anybody else want to make a presentation in favor of or against the proposal?
Susan Kessler, 117 Faculty Road. I wanted to talk a little bit about the light pollution from the lights that illuminate all of the entrances to the storage units. Plus, I think this adds noise pollution from people accessing these units 24/7. They're open 24 hours. You can come and go whenever you want. So I have a problem with that. Depending on where or if they even get approval to put in an access road, like I said, it will probably be right next to my property. And so they're going in and out of there all hours of the day and night. The headlights are spanning across both of my properties in the middle of the night. I mean, I just don't even really like that part of it. So we talked about the safe site distance requirements. I won't go into that again. But let's talk a little bit about the outside parking for RVs, campers, boats, and junk vehicles. I know for a fact that at one of these storage facilities in the county, a couple vehicles came into the lot in 1996, and they continue to sit there today, rusting away. They're up on blocks. Somebody maybe had an idea to restore it and never got around to it. So, you know, there they sit, and it's an eyesore that we will be looking at. That's outside parking. Also, I understand, excuse me, that they have found drug rings operating out of these units. They have found meth labs in the units. I know for a case that there's a storage facility in Watts Township, and they discovered a meth lab in there, and this was just several years ago. So basically, it's easier to rent a space in an unknown location, which is going to be next to us, rather than running these things out of their homes, if they have a home. But I did a little Googling on the internet, and I wanted to share this information with you. I Googled drug rings in storage facilities. In 0.30 seconds, 6,770,000 results popped up on my computer. Then I Googled making meth in storage facilities. In 0.25 seconds, 643,000 popped up. And then, whether you know this or not, people live in these units because they have nowhere else to live. So I thought, okay, I'll Google that, see what I get. In 0.26 seconds, I got 21,800,000 results. And that's just downright terrifying, in my opinion. The other thing I want to talk about is the decrease of property value. Anyone moving up here to Perry County is looking for open space, acreage, farmland, distance from activity. I can't imagine much interest in my property when there's an eyesore next door. Even with all the outstanding landscaping I do and the upkeep on my house and my outbuildings, the fact remains, the value of my house is going to drop through the floor. I'm not happy about that. We discussed a little bit about flash flooding. There's going to be an awful lot of excavating to be done. The hills and the valleys and the farmland will be gone. And is there a possibility of flash flooding and runoff when everything is paved? And it will be paved. So lastly, and probably the most important point I want to make here tonight, is he currently owns 17 plus acres. He is trying to rezone 7 of the 17. And my friends, that is called spot zoning. And it is illegal in the state of Pennsylvania. So right there, that is going to be a huge problem. So I guess that's all I have to say. I respectfully...
Petitions?
Oh, my petitions, yeah. Thank you. I worked so hard on these petitions and now I'm almost forgetting them.
That's why I'm here.
We drafted a petition and we've been going door to door. My neighbors have been very helpful in circulating them. I thank you all for doing that. I worked in politics probably my whole life, and I now know why my bosses never wanted to go door to door before an election, because it is exhausting. But anyway, I'm presenting you with these petitions. I have about 130 plus signatures.
How will that be marked?
Let's mark it collectively.
Opponents, 1.
Yeah, that's fine.
Opponents,
Can I
one.
have this added to that? We were supposed to turn this in.
Thank you. Yeah, I was at your house a couple times.
Sorry
Thanks a
about
million. And if you could you make me a copy of this one, because I have copies of all the others.
that. Here's copies here.
Oh, you have one?
Yeah, there's copies.
Of the signatures?
Yeah.
Oh,
Anybody else have anything to add, pro or con? Thank you very much. We appreciate your attention. We appreciate your orderliness. Orderliness, easy for me to say. This is an information gathering meeting tonight, public hearing tonight. Please pay attention to newspapers. Please pay attention to websites. If the supervisors decide to rezone this property, they must do so by way of an ordinance. The ordinance must be publicized. Property that's affected must be posted, and surrounding property. So please pay attention to that. You're more than welcome to come to as many township meetings as you want to. But until the zoning ordinance is proposed, nothing's going to happen. And then they have to do it at a public meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.